This is episode number 11 of the Obsessive Creative Podcast. This is a community of relentless creators, and here we talk about what it's like to be compelled and obsessed to make work that matters. And of course, we stay away from stressful topics like social media, taxes, and business development. I'm your host, Luke Cleland, and you can keep up to date on all things obsessive and creative by following me on Instagram at LukeWTCleland. All right, let's get into the show. I vividly remember getting my first real photography client. It was my first year of university, and a friend of my sister knew this couple that wanted some couple Valentine Day photos. And so I clearly remember when I found out that first they wanted to hire me, and then they wanted to pay me, like, money. They wanted to pay me $40 to take photos of them. And I was shocked. Like, shocked that someone was willing to actually give me money to take photos. Right? My mind was blown. I had never known of anyone that photography was their career. And I really never even knew anyone personally that run their own business. But being paid to take photos, like, that was like being paid to eat candy. So I said yes to the photo shoot, and I said yes because they saw the medium that I played in and wanted to be a part of it. 11 years after shooting that Valentine's Day couple shoot, my photography hobby looks very different, right? The pressure is higher, the budgets are higher, the expectation of where I should be as a photographer compared to everyone else is higher. And what can get so easily lost in all of that is the thing that drew people to hire me in the first place. And what drew me to pick up a camera in the first place. And that is the ability to play in the creative space, because that is exactly what creativity is, right? It's not this list of rules that you follow and come up with a product. It's not this formula that works just over and over again. It's a tool plus whatever you do with it. It's whatever magic happens when you start to make choices. And one of the reasons I started this podcast was because I felt like I was starting to lose the ability to play as a photographer. And I felt like I needed something in my world to help me figure that out again. I was having a hard time remembering what it felt like to walk around with my camera and experiment without thinking, like, what project can I produce, or how can I grow this or monetize this? I needed, like, to remind myself what creativity was and what playing looks like. To remind myself what it was like before the $40. I think it's something like having a box of foot-injuring Legos spread along the ground, right? Like, or spread across the floor. Having a spread of little plastic, colorful building blocks ready to be experimented with. It's having purpose, but with a touch of abandon. It's caring and creating something, but not caring too much so that you can't just screw it up and tear it down again. It's exploring and experimenting and failing and succeeding. It's playing. And here are 5 reasons why incorporating play into your creative pursuit will make us all better artists. Okay, so number 1 is a mindset of play changes the emphasis from performance to exploration. I have this handwritten sign on my wall that says, "Shut up and play." Because for some reason, once you become an adult, playing isn't cool anymore. Hustle. Hustle is cool. Playing isn't cool. Like, and why is that? Right? Because it's success, performance. Man, that is cool. Failing isn't so cool. Messing up and accepting that you don't have every answer and you're not just like perfectly there and have everything figured out isn't so cool. Like, don't get me wrong, performance is necessary. It's very necessary. You have responsibilities and there's real valid pressures on you to perform. But we often believe that in the world of creativity, the best way to get performance is to perform. But that works in the business world, but in the creative world, it is backwards day every day. Because creativity isn't looking at the numbers and deciding what product you want to make. That's business. And good business is calculated attempts. Creativity isn't necessarily calculated. There has to be an element of unknown, of risk. And that is what makes something creative. The fact that it could have been failed. It could have been misunderstood. There's this element of risk, and risk is uncomfortable. You know, it's funny, like, the older I get, the further along the photography career, it feels like I should just, like, nail everything. I succeed at, if it's photography, I need to succeed at it. Right? Because I've been doing it for years, right? Like, I shouldn't have any failures. I should just keep succeeding at anything I touch in the photography world, and that's how I feel. And it's ridiculous, right? I found myself cutting out any playing because I started to have this expectation for myself that I could no longer fail. It was okay before for me to try something out and it turned out badly. But now it has to be amazing every time, or at least I had this self-expectation for that, for myself to be true, right? And what happens when you have that crushing expectation on someone? Like, what happens if you handed a 7-year-old a bike and said, here's the bike, and if you aren't mountain biking by the end of the day, you're a failure and I want that bike back, right? Like, here is a set of paints. And if you aren't turning out works of art by the end of the day, at the end of the week, you're a loser, right? Why is that ridiculous? Okay, well, it's easy because, okay, it's a kid. Well, kids need time to explore, to figure things out. It takes time for people to learn things. Okay, that's an easy answer for kids. But why do we pass this imaginary line some point in our lives of going from kiddom to being an adult, that exploring and trying and failing is no longer acceptable or an option? Putting myself into a position where I don't know the outcome, and the outcome may be a failure. Having yourself in a position like that is having a mindset of play. Because the end result isn't performing, but it's learning something new and exploring. And that isn't just for kids. So number 2 is playing leads to performance. And performance just leads to being burnt out. I absolutely could not believe that someone would pay me to do something I would do for free. And I had been doing for free for years. Like, I was in high school, I was taking pictures. I got like my first, digital SLR, and I was taking pictures for everything of everyone. And I'd even done some engagement sessions. I'd done a couple weddings, super small weddings for a couple of friends of mine at the end of high school. But that couple that wanted me to take their Valentine's Day photos, they were real clients. They didn't know me, and they're like, oh, here's just like my friend. Like, they were real clients that didn't know who I was. And I thought I was on the top of the world, on top of this crazy world. Like, it was crazy. Here I was, like, playing around with this thing. And then someone was like, here, I will give you money to continue playing with what you're doing, but just involve us. And the cool thing is that the performance that I maybe wanted and didn't realize came. More people wanted me to do that for them, and then more people. And then before you know it, 4 years later, that same couple got married, and they flew me to shoot their wedding in a botanical garden on the top of an island, and the reception was in a yacht. Like, what? Like, that doesn't mean I didn't do lots of hustled things like boring business, calculated repetition. But throughout that whole time, I kept playing as a key part of my creative journey. And for some reason along the way, I started to stop believing that playing was essential to my performance as a photographer. Instead, I started to believe that it was, if I just did as many jobs as possible, or if I could just like get my work out to as many people, if I could just have more money, then I would like my work more, and I would be a better creative, and I would bring about better things. But when I started to see performance as the only valuable outcome of my creative work, burnout started to happen. Because obsessive creatives we're not art robots. We can't just keep turning out the same thing over and over again and never develop, never grow or explore or play. That's the obsessive part, right? The drive to get better, to try new things, to evolve, to solve new problems. And the secret is that playing may just be the fastest way to get that performance. Number 3 is playing opens up opportunities for happy mistakes. I love Paris so much. And before I ever went there for the first time, I thought that it was the cliche place of all cliches, right? But I was so wrong. And one of my favorite things to do in Paris is to just wander around. Ali and I went there on our honeymoon, and one of the things that I had planned to do on the days that we were there in Paris was like I had an entire day of meandering in a certain area. So one of my favorite parts in Paris is Montmartre, which is this district on a hill, and it's got this kind of a church at the top of the hill. But it has these windy streets that work all their way down back to where we are actually staying. So we took the metro close to Montmartre, walked to the top of it, and then we just spent the rest of the afternoon and evening wandering, right? And so you'd walk around, you come to an intersection, and then you just, based on a feeling, you make a left or a right, right? And then you come to a cool little shop, and you just go in, like, oh, that looks cool, let's go in there. And we got hungry, and we decided to just feel it all out. And we came across the most fantastic restaurant ever. And it wasn't planned. And I'm not sure if I could have even planned it out as well as it went. But opening ourselves up to chance and to feeling and opportunity, we opened ourselves up to some happy mistakes and stumbling on great experiences. It doesn't mean it wasn't a perfect experience. It doesn't mean that we made a couple wrong turns and maybe felt nervous for our lives for a couple moments. But for the most part, it was awesome. The process of choice and then finding out what happens is exhilarating. And of course, it was only one day, right? It wasn't the entire honeymoon. I didn't not plan anything. Because often if you don't plan a vacation, you can very easily and quickly get hungry and angry because there's no restaurants and there's no bathrooms if there's no plan. Because if all you do is play and you never schedule and you never set goals and you never look at performance, it can get frustrating and it could definitely start to feel aimless. But if you schedule in some playtime, you can schedule in some happy mistakes. Definitely, plan out the things that you need to do, but give yourself some time to be open to some experiences that may never happen unless you come across them by accident. Okay, number 4 is playing allows you to build a style. The cool thing about playing is that it's based on feelings, right? And your feelings are uniquely you. There's no schedule, there's no instruction manual. It's wandering in Paris, deciding when to take a left and when to take a right. And the best type of exploring is just feeling it out, right? Just like going where the wind takes you. It's taking the risk that might be a bad choice, but it might be a great one. The best type of playing, right? Like when you were a kid, is doing whatever you felt like building, right? Or whatever storyline you wanted to act out. Playing gives yourself a platform to see whether you like the choices that you make. When I first started out in photography, I took my camera everywhere and I took photos of everything. Everything. But after a while, I stopped taking photos of certain things and was drawn to photographing other things. And when you don't have those opportunities to find out what you like to do and what you feel drawn to, someone else will begin to dictate that. And then you won't know what your style and vision is. You'll know what theirs is. Because everyone has opinions, and especially in the creative world. If you don't know your opinion, you soon will be given someone else's, right? I don't get this a lot anymore. I'll get it every so often, but definitely when I first started shooting weddings, I would have someone, come up to me and say, "Oh, like, that's a good photo. You should get that." Or, oh, like, that's a beautiful little section. Like, you need to take a photo of that. And I would be like, what? Like, which is funny, right? Because you hire a photographer for that exact reason. Like, you hire a photographer to take photos based on what they think the photo should be taken of, like the photographer, and what their opinion is, and what their style is. You need to give yourself opportunity and a platform to do that on your own, to be able to say, like, okay, if I was to make this choice, like, which choice would I make? And that's what playing is so good at doing, is that it enables you to have a time to make those choices and then to look at the choices you made and evaluate them. You're like, do I like the choices that I made? Did I like the direction I went in? If I don't give myself time to learn what that is on my own, someone else will definitely tell me what it should be. All right, number 5, and lastly, playing is fun. Like, we are so surrounded with this attitude that the most important thing is being busy, is being slammed with work, taking calls, getting followers, booking deals. And let me tell you, it's awesome being slammed with work, taking calls, getting followers, like booking the deals. Those things are fun. But for me, the reason why I started photography, the reason why I picked up a camera, the reason why you started writing, like why you picked up that paintbrush or whatever it is, it's because it was fun. It's because the choices that you made, you liked, and you liked making those choices and you liked doing it. It was enjoyable. And I never want to forget that creativity is such a gift. It's a gift that recharges us, that motivates us. Take the gift and have some fun. Like, go and play. Because playing might just be the most productive thing you can do. Thanks so much for listening this week. And I hope each episode encourages you to lean into who you are as a creative and do work that matters. If you love the podcast, I would love for you to leave a review. It would mean so much. It doesn't even have to be any words. Just a rating would be swell. And until next week, stay obsessed.